Item B, receive presentation from the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission regarding proposed regional groundwater storage and recovery project.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Steve Ritchie. I am the Assistant General Manager of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission for Water. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to make a presentation to you about a very important project to both of us. I also want to make sure that I emphasize that we value San Bruno as a customer of ours in the regional water system. You know, there's many people who receive water from the regional system, and they're all very important customers to us. Project we're going to be talking about benefits, we believe, San Bruno, San Francisco, and the regional water system as a whole. It's really a way to make sure that we're managing our water supplies through wet years so that we have water available in dry years, which is so critical to us in terms of how we deal with times of drought. So we look forward to actually working with you on this project. I'd like to ask our project manager for it, Greg Bartow, to actually come up and give you the specifics.
Thank you, Steve. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on our proposed regional groundwater storage and recovery project. I wanted to first start and just make just a little introduction about the San Francisco PUC. We are a wholesale and retail water supplier to 2.5 million people in the Bay Area. 85% of the water comes from the Hetch Hetchy watershed up in Yosemite National Park. That water is transmitted 167 miles by pipelines and tunnels into the San Francisco Bay Area, and then we also have the other 15% of the water comes from reservoirs on the peninsula in the East Bay. We also are well on our way embarking on the Water System Improvement Program, which was a $4.3 billion capital improvement project started in 2003. The main service goals of that are to strengthen the system, to have it be able to deliver the water after an earthquake, to deliver the highest quality water, to be able to meet future anticipated treatment requirements at our treatment plants, provide for system redundancies and crossovers for maintenance and emergencies, protect the natural and human environment, and then the last one, develop new sources of groundwater, recycled water to meet our water supply and dry year needs. And that element is where this groundwater storage and recovery project fits in. We're also working to develop local supplies in San Francisco as part of this water system improvement program. This is the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir up on the Tuolumne River, and during normal and wet years we have sufficient water to meet all of our customer needs, but when we get into a dry year, that's what this project's about. And so this is a picture from 1991, the drought, and that's Tuolumne, the reservoir looking downstream at the dam, and water levels were dangerously low at that time. And so we put together a package of projects, both this project, regaining our capacity in Calaveras and Crystal Springs Reservoir, as well as water transfers to meet our dry year needs. I want to just talk in general about groundwater and storage and recovery. What does that mean? Another term for that that's used is conjunctive use. The Department of Water Resources defines it as coordinated use of groundwater and surface water, where in normal and wet years that water can be stored underground and then accessed in dry years. So it's the storing it in normal and wet years, and then accessing that or recovering it in the dry years. And there's three different ways typically that water is stored. Sometimes it's spread in surface ponds and allowed to infiltrate into the ground surface. Other water utilities inject it into wells to store it underground. And then a third way, and the way that we're proposing for this project, is an in lieu. So in lieu of pumping during normal and wet years, we provide additional surface water to meet the customer's needs. And then during the dry year, then that water is pumped back out. Santa Clara Valley Water District, ACWD, across the bay and Zone 7 all have been implementing this type of storage and recovery project for many years. I also wanted to highlight the partnerships that's gone on between San Bruno, Daly City, Cal Water in their South San Francisco service area, and the PUC in the West Side Basin. Since the mid-90s, we've worked cooperatively on a number of projects, improving the geologic understanding of the basin, doing monitoring, developing a computer model of the basin, constructing groundwater monitoring wells. We've done a pilot storage and recovery project to look at the feasibility of this banking, working on recycle water projects, and then most recently, San Bruno has taken the lead on the Southwest Side groundwater management plan, and with input from these other agencies. So there's been quite a history of working together. So on to the project. So this is an outline of the West Side groundwater basin. It extends from Golden Gate Park down through Daly City, Colma, South San Francisco, underlies San Bruno, and then down to Burlingame. For convenience, it's been called the Southwest Side Basin is the San Mateo County portion of the basin, and the Northwest Side Basin is the San Francisco portion, but they are one basin, and it really is for convenience purposes, that delineation. It's about 40 square miles, 25 in the San Mateo portion of the basin, and 15 square miles in the San Francisco portion. There are the three partner agencies in the Southwest Side Basin are Daly City in their service area, Cal Water showing their service area, and San Bruno. The basin thins to the south. Millbrae and Burlingame don't use groundwater for municipal use. The key component here is these other three entities are able to use both groundwater and San Francisco system water, which makes a perfect fit for this kind of water storage.
Question.
Yes, sir.
In the middle of this, when you talk about 40 square miles, give us an idea. What's capacity is that compared to like a Hetch Hetchy kind of situation? We think in terms of Hetch Hetchy's capacity, and you're talking about groundwater storage.
Okay.
What's the capacity of
so
that?
In well, how about in water supply? Actually, the Hetch Hetchy system, both the Hetch Hetchy and the local reservoirs we have a typical yield of 265 million gallons per day, is what that surface water supply is. In this project, the dry year component of it is just over 7 million gallons per day. So it's a small but important component of that dry year mix with these other projects. To put that, another thing though that's impressive to put in comparison is the amount of storage that, and I'll show this later, but I think it's worthwhile just saying, looking at this slide, the amount of water that we can store underground in this portion of the basin has been estimated at 70,000 acre feet, of which we want to utilize roughly 60,000 acre feet. And 60,000 acre feet is the volume of water that's in Crystal Springs Reservoir, upper and lower Crystal Springs Reservoir, further down on the peninsula that you see from I-280, or you drive over when you're going over 92 to Half Moon Bay. So that's a sizable amount of water supply to be able to store in this basin. In fact, so this is how the project would work. So this upper graphic is a schematic cross-section of the West Side Basin with the current saturated aquifer shown in blue, so the basin boundaries here, stippled pattern, and then the vacated storage, I'll call it. So historically, water levels were higher in the basin due to historic pumping has lowered the water level in the basin to 200 to 300 feet below the ground surface. And so there's an ability to store water in this vacated storage. This is a typical well like San Bruno has, a municipal supply well, and so that's sort of the existing conditions now. With the project, we would install a series of additional wells to be able to extract the stored water, and then the center component is during a wet year, a normal year, where San Bruno and the other pumpers would significantly decrease the amount of their pumping, and we would make up that demand with with the Hetch water. And so that by not pumping allows the aquifer to recharge, to naturally recharge, shown schematically with the arrows and the storage accruing here. So sort of saving for, instead of a rainy day, it's just saving for a dry day. And then here's the dry year conditions, and this is the benefit of the projects, is then both San Bruno, the other partners, turn on their municipal wells, we turn on the project wells to recover that stored water. I'll show you a little different accounting of that. You know, again, it was existing conditions, wet year, dry year. To look at that a little differently, this is the same concept, existing conditions on the left, wet year, dry year. This is the total water use of those three utilities combined. And so typically, currently, there's 14.5 million gallons per day of surface water used by those entities, and then groundwater from all of those agencies are pumping about 6.7 million gallons per day. The way that water's stored is then we would increase in the normal and wet years, we would increase our deliveries to those customers. They would still maintain some pumping to keep the wells exercised, and so that water goes into storage. And then the payout, the benefit of this, is you can see there's a decrease then in the surface water deliveries made up by the existing water from storage, so that everyone's getting their demands met, but there's a reduction on the system as a whole, which floats everybody's boat, basically a regional benefit to all 2.5 million customers by this project. So the project benefits both are regional and local. The new dry year storage of to have a local storage of 61,000 acre feet. You can imagine trying to build a reservoir in the Bay Area the size of Crystal Springs Reservoir today would be nearly impossible. The permitting and trying to find that much land provides a huge regional benefit to all the PUC customers. There's no evaporation. Groundwater that's stored underground isn't subject to evaporation. You have several feet of evaporation from surface water reservoirs every year. On a local level, the basin water levels will be higher in most years, and so there'll be less pumping lift costs because that water will be shallower and it'll take less energy to pull that water out of the ground when it's being used. The wells can also be used as a backup to the partner agencies should they need to have a backup well for some period during the times when we're storing water. And then it reduces the partners' pumping and water treatment costs during that period when water is being stored and we're supplying that water. Then there wouldn't be as much need for treatment and pumping costs. So there's 16 well sites that we've looked at, plus 3 alternatives that have been identified. We did a alternatives analysis where we looked at about 40 different well sites in the basin, and then have started the environmental process and field work to move forward on evaluating these proposed sites. Let me just give you the basic project description and schedule here. So the project would require developing agreements with each of the partners to store and recover the water. We develop the design drought is a 7.2 million gallons per day over a 7.5 year design drought. So that 60,000 acre feet, when filled, would last 7.5 years, would provide a 7.5 year benefit to the region. That's a pretty draconian drought, which hasn't occurred historically, but was put together as sort of 2 historic long-term droughts to design for a worst-case scenario. And then we pump only the stored water. This isn't an extraction project to go out and pump native water from the basin, but only stored water. And an operating committee would be developed with the partners to monitor the volume stored and the volume pumped. I told you there was 16 well facilities on that map that we would build as part of the project. Those well stations would have disinfection, treatment, and also for treating manganese as needed, which is a common naturally occurring mineral in the groundwater in many parts of the basin. And then those wells would connect to the various entities within within the basin. The schedule, this is a project that's been in planning for many years and sort of thought about, and then was put into this water system improvement program to provide the funding. So we've completed field work, initial analysis at 14 of the 16 sites, started the environmental review last summer. The EIR is expected to be out by the middle of next year, mid-2011, and then certified in 2012. The operations agreement would be finalized after the EIR is certified. The design is starting, and we're starting to have discussions with the partner agencies about the preliminary design criteria. The bid and award wouldn't happen until 2013, and then construction 2013 to 2015. Opportunities for public input. We're expecting to have a scheduled meeting later this summer that will coordinate with San Bruno staff on the timing and location. Then once the EIR is out, there'll be public meetings associated with that, as well as an ability for citizens to comment and the city to comment on the draft EIR. And that's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Any questions of Greg or Steve?
Through the chair.
Michael?
I have a question. I may have missed this, but what happens to San Bruno's control over water rates? If we start participating in a program like this, does the PUC then set the rates and we lose control of that?
No, this doesn't really enter into your individual rates with your customers. This project is being paid for by all of the regional wholesale customers, all 2.5 million customers, like the rest of the seismic upgrade projects within the system.
The cost specifically associated with the program, but I'm wondering if we're purchasing all our water during the rainy years, then that's something that we normally don't do. We pump our water, and now we're buying more. So I'm just curious how.
It might be better if I answered that question. I asked Greg to avoid discussion tonight because it's premature of any these types of issues that would be specifically related to a contractual agreement that would accompany a decision and moving forward towards an actual conjunctive use program in which we and the other partner agencies formally implemented. Just as a little bit of background, and I'll come to your specific question in a second. The City Council is probably aware that we've been in discussion in some level really about over the last 10 years. So this is a project that has a long history, and it's one that we are continuing to participate in discussions with the PUC and the other partner agencies. They're very pleased to see these technical studies and the other detailed information being developed that will help staff advise you and will help you make a final decision about a contractual relationship. The cost of the water, how much of that water during wet years we would purchase and pay for, and what that rate would be subject to those specific contractual discussions, and that is still an issue about which there has been substantial discussion, but about which there is, at this moment, no final decision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to either both the city manager to explain to the public, is this good for San Bruno? You know, is this an advantage that we have, say, over other cities that don't pump water and that are totally dependent on PUC water? So, because there's 3 cities that pump water, and I see how the map and we happen to be over a nice aquifer. I mean, none of the pumps are in San Francisco, and so it's South San Francisco, it's Daly City, and it's San Bruno that are going to be affected by this. So does that give us an advantage in the future with possible, with obvious, increases in rates and the ever-present, droughts that may come?
Whether it's good for San Bruno is, at this point, a little bit early to say. I think it's fair to say that we would not be in this discussion and wouldn't have the opportunity for participation in what is likely to be a very beneficial program for the region without being a pumper. If we were one of the agencies, and there are many on the peninsula here that purchase 100% of their water from the PUC, they would have nothing to contribute or to be in discussion about as part of this program. I think it's fair to say that San Bruno has been benefited and will continue to be benefited by the technical evaluations that are part of this process and which we are pursuing as a lead agency in the groundwater management plan that is recently being started, and which the PUC and others are participating with us. So I think it's fair to say that we have been benefited and will continue to be benefited by the technical information, by the ability to make choices with respect to management of our system and provision of water to our customers, our residents, and whether or not ultimately the details of an agreement and the precise operational program of a conjunctive use project are of interest and benefit to the city of San Bruno is pending some amount of further investigation and negotiations and the environmental review of the project.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
I think
Thank
we
you.
do have a question from the public.
Maybe before he leaves. Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I believe a number of years ago, San Bruno was asked not to pump water for 6 months, 9 months or whatever when they were looking at water levels in Lake Merced or whatever in storage. And the SFPUC agreed at that point to sell us water at the same cost or close to it that we pumped our own. So in effect, there was no major net difference in the cost of water to supply to our residents. Has that been given, that same principle been given discussion or thought in this? If we are going to participate in this, should we be able to buy water in the wet years from the PUC at about the same price that we could have pumped, so that there wouldn't be a drastic difference in the cost to our residents? Thank you.
City manager.
If
Yeah.
I explained that right.
The program that Mr. Reichel is talking about is, in fact, as Mr. Bartow mentioned earlier, trial conjunctive use program that was in effect, I believe, in 2003, 2004 time period approximately. And that is, in fact, Mr. Reichel correctly recites the agreement that was in place at that time, and the answer is yes. A similar arrangement is part of the discussion that has occurred, and again, where we end up with precise details and cost arrangements is subject to further discussion. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you.